I'm Algenon Cash, and you're locked in. Thank you for getting back with me. Thank you for joining me. We've got another great episode, and I know you all say, "Man, Algenon, you just believe every episode is great," and I do because I work so very hard to make sure you get some really cool guests and here to share with you about what's going on in your backyard and, of course, around the state and the country and so forth. Before I get into it today, I always like to remind you who supports us so that you can get out and support them. And I wanted you to know that this conversation today is being sponsored by Angela Harriet at Keller Williams. Angela has been a big supporter of the show. I know we are dealing with a very hyperactive real estate market right now. So many people are looking to either buy a home or sell a home. And you need some professional help with that. If you don't understand the process, Angela Harriet is very skilled, talented, and someone you want to reach out to. Angela Harriet over at Keller Williams. And you can find Angela on Facebook. Look for Harriet Properties. I would encourage you to follow her page. Make sure she has your email address. She's always sending out really helpful tips. She's someone that cares a lot about our community, and she cares about this show. So if you care about me and you support what we're doing, I want you to support her because she is definitely supporting us. Again, that's Angela Harriet over at Keller Williams. Also, we're getting right now into the holiday season. It doesn't quite feel like it. I think 2020 has been awkward for so many of us, so many different changes. And as you have heard me say before, the word pivot is something that has been overly used this year for certain. But we're all having to pivot, and we're waking up to more and more cases of COVID-19 in our community. Over the weekend, we set more records here in North Carolina. We're now surpassing 6,000 cases a day. And certainly the governor and our public health officials are trying to figure out what they can do to, keep us safe and protected. But it is the holiday season, and it happens to be one of my favorite times of the year. I love Christmas, not because I get anything. No one never gives me any presents, which is completely okay. But I just enjoy the fellowship and being reconnected with friends and family and having dinner and eating good food and doing all those kind of things. And so I wanted to shift. We've had a lot of conversations about politics and so many other things. We're coming off this big election cycle. So many of you are probably burnt out on the politics, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Christmas season. And there's a program that I want you to know more about. I've invited a good friend of mine, Nathan Tabor, to join us, who's not only he's the founder of Christmas Toy Drive, but to me, he's like the real life Santa Claus. This is the guy who's actually working behind the scenes to make sure kids have a Christmas. And so we're going to have a conversation with Nathan. Before I bring Nathan in, I just want you to know Nathan is somebody who's a good friend of mine. He's a leader in our community. He's a real estate guru. He's an author, speaker, political figure. I mean, the guy has done so much. And so if you have questions or comments as we sort of get ready to go through this discussion, you can always put them in the chat. And so thank y'all again for locking in with me. Nathan, you're locked in, man. How are you today?
Good. Hey, I've been called a lot of things, but I've never been called Santa Claus before.
Hey, man, I want to start off by apologizing. I am someone who worked with you a lot on this program when you first launched Christmas Toy Drive. It was something that back when we, in the Piedmont Club days, we would have a nice Christmas party and we were able to get a lot of presents collected for kids. I have been delinquent and have not participated the last few years. So I want my audience to know I, like so many people, get so busy and we get distracted, and some of those things we care so much about, we don't always keep up sometimes. And so I was so happy to see, in fact, I was speaking at the Republican luncheon last Monday. Nathan's also former chair of the Forsyth County Republican Party. And I was speaking at the conservative luncheon last Monday. They mentioned your name and said that you were coming today. And I said, man, I got to get Nathan on to talk about Christmas Toy Drive. So, man, how's it going this year? How's the program going?
It's good. I think, no shocking news, right? But the people around the U.S. and North Carolina, winston-salem, just people are hurting and struggling. And there's more this season than there traditionally have been. And, I know your show and you do a great job on that. That immediately elicits mostly from both sides, or whose fault is it? And we immediately kind of shift gears into this political defend my turf, right? Who's right, who's wrong. And it's tough, even for me, because, I'm politically minded too, and I have my opinions, but it's kind of like in a situation like this, when someone's hurting, especially if you come from a Christian, evangelical background or something of a religious, higher power, that if someone's hurting, the story of the Good Samaritan, do you stop and say, what's your political affiliation? Where do you go to church? What do you believe? Do you ask them 20 questions or do you help them?
Yeah.
You help them. And so I hope in this season, because there's such a need, and it seems to be coming through in the Salvation Army and their kettles and things like that people are helping. But I mean, they're hurting too. I mean, just because you have a job doesn't mean everything's great. They, one of the job people, in the household could have lost their job. So we just don't know what people are going through, but the need is there and people seem to be stepping into it.
Well, before we get into the Christmas toy drive, the program itself, I do want to start off by saying, because it's been a little while since I've actually had a chance to talk with you. I know we reconnected off air a little bit ago, but you're out speaking, you're doing some coaching, you're helping people who are busy people to sort of calm down and rebalance their lives a little bit. This tends to be a season where people are just so busy they can't seem to slow down. I think COVID has made it even worse. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there in terms of people actually just slowing down and enjoying the holiday season.
I was looking up a thing here. It's unique that you bring that up. I was reading an article today that says, do you know when the time period that most people break up? I just assumed Valentine's Day because that seemed to be logical, but it's Christmas. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. So even before COVID, even before all the, the politics, and before we pile all that on, Christmas in and of itself has become a stressful time. So if you're stressed out, an 8 out of 10 in August, December is just going to be miserable for you, right? And, there's two things that's really in that. Is one is finding that work-life balance. What's the meaning of family? What's the meaning of money and time and all of that? But the second, especially for a believer, is that we've taken the focus so much off of the birth of Christ, and it's been placed on this material. And I'm not against gifts, and I'm not against Christmas trees. And I mean, I wear Christmas sweaters. I mean, I'm not against anything Christmas. So I'm not coming from that side. We have, we have Santa Claus come to our toy drive, but Christmas is still about the birth of Christ. And so, Algenon, I think between those two things of people kind of, forgetting what Christmas is truly about, but just the stress of life, and then you put COVID on top of it for 2020, I think, there's a lot of people out there who are hurting right now, who have got a lot of things going on internally that they maybe haven't even expressed it to anybody.
Have you seen some type of demand go up this year for your type of coaching? I know you've also got online digital workshops. You've got a lot of different ways people can access your support, but have you seen a greater demand for that this year? Or?
Yes, especially in the side of somebody who's being, downsized or has lost their job. So now not only is it the normal things that are going on in life, now the income has stopped. So all of a sudden there's been this, tragic event. How do you resolve that? And so I've seen a lot of that. But on the other side of it, I've seen an uptick in people who are doing really well. They're just killing, as you use your phrase, they're locked in. And it's not that the other people aren't locked in. They just happen to be locked in an industry that is, killing construction, roofers, you can't even get them to come give you a quote for 6 months. So there's still people who are dealing with that normal life without COVID because they've just gone on, their business is doing great. And then there's people who's not. So, I mean, so I've seen this year in coaching and consulting, more influences, things that normally 1 out of 100 might have it. Now it's like 75 or 80 out of 100 have that struggle because of all the things that's going on with COVID.
I saw you and I mentioned that we hadn't talked as much, but I keep up with you through social media and Instagram, Facebook, all these things. I saw a post that you made, and I liked it. Is back over the summer, back when COVID first hit, and I think I know for me and most likely for you and so many people, it's like immediately because of the reaction to COVID, all business just sort of ceased until, at least for a few weeks and a couple months, until people could figure out what that next step was going to be. And I remember seeing a post, and I think you had built a deck or something for someone.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that story. That was really intriguing to me.
Well, yeah, I did. For the industry I was in, going out and speaking, and especially in the real estate side, in that first month or two or three, I mean, things just, people threw their brakes on, and understandably so. But like for my wife, she's a travel agent. I mean, and if anybody is watching that's a travel agent or is married to one, they've been working the entire time rebooking people's trips, which they don't get paid for. So they've worked since COVID, but all their commissions have been canceled. So I found my, self of sitting around going, well, what do I do? I need to make some money. This is out, and in the real estate that I buy and sell was on hold type, and heard my neighbor mention, hey, I need to get a fence built over my son's house. And I was like, well, I mean, let's talk. So we talked, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so I got a friend from church, and we went and built a fence.
And so a fence, that's right, not a deck, a fence.
Not a
deck.
Right. Well, very similar.
Yeah.
One horizontal, one vertical, pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But we, I thought about sharing it, not sharing it, because, the thing with social media, or just, that sharing of stuff, is people's lives can look so much better. I mean, like, wow, how do they get to do that? They go to this a lot, or they, just because you normally don't see, people normally don't go on and say, well, hey, this week I weighed 5 pounds more than I did last week. They don't normally share that. They're normally like showing off the good look. It's just this thought process in there. So I thought for a few days, how's the best way to post this? Because I didn't want it to come off as like patting myself on the back. Like, oh, look how, great I am. I didn't want it to come off as, oh, woe is me. And I think it came off across that way. It's like, hey, when you find yourself in a corner, you can basically do a couple of things. You can do nothing, just kind of stand there. You can get stuck, start to sink down, or you can change corners.
Well, that's how I received it, for sure.
Yeah. Well, it, and I say this not as pride of like, oh, how does I look? How do I look? How's my hair? Not that pride, but like self-centeredness, ego, of sharing with somebody that, hey, while you think my life might be this way, because from the outside it looks all rosy and green and that, but inside there's something going on that you're not even aware of. And I think we've lost that in our society, of being able to share, even with family and friends, that like, hey, yeah, I'm doing great. I mean, everything's going great, except my income's gone and I still have bills. So I got to do something. I mean, that's, to sit down and kind of have an open conversation with someone and tell them where you are and what's going on. It can come off as, poor me, or it can just come off as, hey, this is my life. And I think we've learned a lot of that through COVID. At least some have, of, hey, it's okay to be open. It's okay to not be the Marlboro man. Don't let them see you cry. Don't let them see you sweat. Don't, and more to step back and say, hey, Algenon, this is what's going on in my life. And I'm not, here to, one way or the other. I just wanted you to know this is what I'm doing. And if you're struggling with this, I hope this is an encouragement to you.
Well, I thought that it spoke of very deep humility, and it certainly was a message that hit me positively. And I'll tell you, like so many people, when COVID first hit, and the restaurants got shut down and the businesses got shut down, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do. And I saw your post actually, and it actually inspired me to reach out to a friend of mine who I didn't know had a lot of work going on. And I think before I was being a bit prideful about reaching out and saying, hey, I need something to do. And I reached out to a friend of mine, and ended up landing probably a 4 or 5 month contract with him that really helped out significantly at a great time of need. So your message and your post was very timely. I can't speak for everyone else that saw it, but it certainly blessed me.
Did you just say that I need to send you an invoice for a commission on a deal?
Hey, I've always known you to just be doing the Lord's work, man. So
Well,
God is just moving through you. So
well, I hated to interrupt you there, and because I appreciate your words of kindness, but I didn't want you to go too far in there of, and people might think that I was paying you to say those nice things about me. But Algenon, that is my heart, and I want to encourage others too. Like, especially if you're coming from a Christian side, if you want to reach someone, and if you want to really develop a relationship with them, it's not quoting John 3:16 to them. It's not wagging your finger at them saying, hey, you need to get in church. You need to get your heart right with God. I, had people do that to me for years, and it doesn't bring us closer. It makes us want to go further away. But if someone's sharing with me, hey, let me tell you how I was hurting, or let me tell you how God blessed me, or, let me share something with you that is a struggle in my life, or whatever it is, and not say anything to them about what they are or aren't doing, but just what you're doing. I mean, to me, that's the planting of seeds. That's of sharing with others, but without shoving it down their throat, right? And I think we've lost that art, especially in a lot of the church, and especially in our politics, and in that of being able to say what we want to say, get our point across, but not be so crazy about it. I'll use that word.
yeah, just too aggressive about it at times. Yeah. But again, that had a huge impact to me. And I would also say to my audience that what I have always valued and appreciated in the friendship that I have with Nathan is that we don't always talk all the time, but it feels like whenever we do reconnect and talk again, it's almost like we just picked off from where we left it before. And so there's been times where I'm going through some really tough moments and cycles and circumstances. We all go through them. And Nathan has been someone that has been able to speak into that. And I say speak into that because I know for a fact, a lot of times he's not even aware that he's speaking into it. He's not even fully aware of the challenge I'm going through, but some kind of way I seem to get blessed from that. So I would encourage people, find Nathan, or, he's got all kind of videos and Facebook pages and all kind of stuff. And we'll get at the end, we'll make sure we share all that with you so you know where to go, but look for him for those reasons too. And I owe you a Mountain Dew. I know you probably still drink Mountain Dew, so I owe you a Mountain Dew when we get back together. But
right. Hey, real quick, before you switch, real quick, just
go ahead.
Maybe 60 seconds between you and I, just so everybody knows. I mean, our relationship's not always been rosy. We've had some bumps.
We have.
You've been mad at me, and I've been mad at you, and I think we've lost that. And that's the growing pains of being friends, or being in a relationship, or being married. You're not going to like the person at all times. But at some point, if you're going to do what God has asked you to do, you're going to have to go back and ask for forgiveness and admit your fault in it. And then if the other person's also willing to, then you can come back together and be friends. But it takes two to tango. It only takes one to forgive, but to rebuild a relationship, both have to. But most people aren't willing to forgive somebody else because they don't want to have to admit their part in it.
Well, and it just feels like we've gotten to this point, especially within relationships, where it's just so easy for us to put something down, and say, well, I don't want that anymore, and I'll just throw that down and throw it away. And I think I've had to learn, as you've learned, the hard way, that you just can't approach life that way. I mean, these relationships are very valuable, and you same way, if I had a diamond ring in my hand, I wouldn't just throw it to the ground and walk off, right?
It's not like Facebook where I can add you or delete you or block you. True relationships aren't that way. They're not that black and white. They're not on or off. But I think that's the philosophy that's being applied to a lot of the relationships today. It's like, oh, well, I don't like you anymore, so I'm just going to delete you from all my accounts and block your text messages, and we're done. But that's not, it really doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's not what we were called to do. But you also have a heart for Christmas. You've got your Christmas sweater on. And for my audience, he did not put the Christmas sweater on for the show. He's very much into the Christmas spirit. In fact, as I was promoting the show today, I shared an old picture of you and I. I was on Santa Claus's one knee and you were on the other knee, and you had Christmas pants on and everything. And some people asked me, they said, "How old is that picture?" I said, "Man, that picture's got to be close to 10 years old." So you've always been someone who really embraces Christmas. You came up with this idea for ChristmasToyDrive.com. What was the inspiration? Why did you want to do this?
Yeah, well, getting involved, with Christmas and Salvation Army, and for a while, for a long time, Brenner's Children's Hospital, which they stopped doing their Festival of Trees, but we still do some hospital things. But really came from, in part, a little bit growing up, probably the way we celebrated Christmas and such a time there, getting around the fire and the Christmas tree and singing the carols. And then as I kind of got older growing up, realizing that not everybody had that same type of Christmas, and that, some was because of, preference or that, but some was because they, couldn't afford it. And so I probably 17 or 18 years ago got involved with Brenner's and Salvation Army, and just really saw a need to help give back, give toys, give clothing. We do a story Bible. It's a little comic book. You can get a free one at thestorybible.com. And then it just kind of, from Algenon from there, it just kind of exploded in a sense. It just kind of opened up, and this came about and that came about. And Christmas Toy Drive is affiliated with, but not. It's nothing official. It's nothing any of that. But if you go to Google and search Christmas Toy Drive, my site comes up, and which I've offered to Salvation Army, a whole nother discussion. But it came out of wanting to help them. And so originally it was just here in the area. Now it's all over, because anybody who searches on Google for Christmas Toy Drive, they come to my website.
And so are they able, because I went to it today, it's changed a little bit since I remembered it before, but it's now you can make a donation to actually buy a toy if you don't want to buy one.
We were right in the middle of getting something updated about a month ago, and the designer's been out. He's been sick. So a COVID thing, it's supposed to be updated more. But it normally gives people the ability to go to, the Salvation Army and see how can they get help. That help's applied for. It's already a month ago that people had it. So there's kind of some information for those who might be looking for help, and then there's information for people who want to get involved with the local Salvation Army, or there's information of people who say, "Hey, I just want to give money, go buy toys." And I found a lot of people who are like that. It's not, I don't know their reasoning why. I could come up with it, but don't know. They just want to give money and get a picture of the toys or who the kids, how it went out. And so Christmas Toy Drive, we'll go out each year and fill up a box truck full of toys from people who have donated monies to buy toys.
How many families you think you helping on an annual basis now?
I started about 15 years ago, kind of started tracking. We won't cross it this year, but we're close to over almost $1 million worth of help that's been directly linked through a direct contact through the website or somebody hearing a show like this.
And now I know when we would participate at the Piedmont Club, we just had a big party, and the way you got into the party is you had to bring a toy, and then your crew would come by that night and sort of collect or gather all the toys. Almost similar to how the Toys for Tots program works that Salvation Army, I think, oversees. Does it still work the same way, or is there some other bells and whistles to it now?
It has been that way, but something changed this year, COVID related. So I don't know if it's a permanent change or just for this. But in the past, Toys for Tots, at least in North Carolina, gave their toys to Salvation Army to distribute.
I see. And then you sort of started alluding to this at the top of our interview, but we went a different direction. What are you hearing in terms of demand? I mean, is demand 50% up, 60% up, 20% up? I mean, where is demand now that we're in this COVID environment in 2020?
Yeah, depending on which source you go to right now, right? So I'll give more of a personal. At Christmas Toy Drive, each season we'll normally get around about 100 people who are looking for help. So 100 people who, didn't see, hey, click here, email this, enter your zip code here for help. This year, it's been about 400. So, those numbers kind of hold true about the middle of the road. Some numbers out there say, oh, we're really low. Some say we're really high. So just on internal numbers, I would say kind of in the middle that, demand's up probably around 15, 18, 20%.
Wow. Wow. And then are you seeing any slack off with donations? People are so afraid to gather. You don't have like the holiday parties that I used to do at the Piedmont Club aren't happening this year. So how's it working on the actual donation side?
It seems same thing here, like in Kernersville. There were 3 or 4 people that I worked with, and 3 or 4 that the Salvation Army, that they would raise probably $3,000 or $4,000 worth of toys or money to buy toys in that one party. Don't know the numbers yet, but it looks like the money's still going to come in, but it's going to be done through like credit card donations or checks, not through, getting together, which kind of, runs along the facts of churches putting out their numbers and saying offerings have held the same, whether they had church or not. So I think in the end, it's going to end up that, the money and the need is going to be met. But that's going to be met because people are still, you still can donate, and people are going to continue to do it right up to the point that they can't.
Well, I encourage my audience. We've got some very generous people. You heard me talk a lot about Angela Harriet at the top of the show. We got so many generous people out there. And I know everybody's got their pet project and the thing they want to support and donate to, but I would ask you to consider adding ChristmasToyDrive.com to the list, even if you can just go out and buy a simple toy, or if it sounds like if you don't have time or you don't want to go out and buy the toy, just make the donation and enable them to be able to go to Amazon or wherever they decide to go to, purchase some gifts for a kid.
A lot of times now you can even go to Amazon. You can go to your Amazon Prime and send toys to the Salvation Army. I don't know, they won't come probably to your hometown, but if you want to just give back, and I don't know, you might be able to send it to your hometown now. I know they've been beta testing that and rolling it out.
Well, I think that's a great idea too. I was one of those kids that, I grew up, very poor. We struggled a lot, and I can still remember the year that my mom came home and told me that Santa Claus was not coming that year. And I think I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, and I was so confused by it because I just didn't understand. I'd been a great kid. I was getting good grades and doing all the things that they said you have to do for Santa Claus to visit, but he wasn't coming to my house. And I recall asking my mom, I said, well, why is he not coming to here? And she says, I can't afford it this year. And it was the first time that I really came into encounter with the idea that there was a link between Christmas and actual money, right? Like somebody has to go buy all these gifts. And so that's one reason I've always been attracted to what you do, because I do know there's some kids out there that don't always understand that there is someone that has to pay for that, for you to have that holiday experience or the joy of Christmas that we talk about. And I think it's so cool how you bring that to families who otherwise wouldn't have it. But as I get ready to wrap up, one of my final questions is, do you think Christmas has become too commercialized? Is it too much about the gifts, the toys, all the externalities, to the point that maybe we've lost focus of what it's really about?
I mean, a very simple but complex question, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that kind of come into play, but the ultimate answer is yes. But the ultimate answer has been yes for quite some time, because focusing on Christ and having that relationship with, and that it's a choice, and not everybody chooses that. But even when you do choose it and you accept Jesus, then you actually have to go and apply his word to your life. So it's not, oh, I accept Jesus and then I'm pre-programmed now to go sing Silent Night every night for 30 nights before Christmas. You still have to make the choice to make Jesus part of your house, your celebration. So, people will say Christ is being removed from Christmas. Well, from a marketing side, from a sales side and all that, yes, they can take that out, but they can't take Christ out of your home. So I really want to ask people, like, if you're so concerned about that side, are you that concerned about it being in your house? Is it in your house all the time? Or is it literally only in your house on Easter and Christmas? So yes, I think it's being blatantly trying to be removed. Christ is, let's strip, Christ out of Christmas. Let's just make it about the movie Elf, which I love. Let's make it about Santa Claus and make it all about, toys. But if you're a Christian, even if they remove it over here, they shouldn't be able to remove it from your home. And then the question on that is it actually in your home? Are you replacing Christ are you taking Christ out of Christmas and it's all about the travel or the toys or the gifts or the get-togethers, and you read the, birth of Jesus story for 5 minutes on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, no, I understand. And to my audience, we're not saying that you shouldn't have fun and enjoy Christmas, because there's so many other traditions that we know people really enjoy. I know in my house this past weekend, we do this every year. We watch A Christmas Story. I love it. No matter, I've seen it a million times. I know how it's going to end every time, but I watch it every year and love to watch Ralphie and Randy and the whole thing. And so I know people have so many traditions they like to follow. But I would join in with Nathan's plea that we need to make sure that we also keep Christ and God at the center of it. And I think this is a year, encouraging my audience. This is a year that you want to do that. I know for me, I can't speak for everyone in my audience. I know for me, this has been a challenging year. And there was a point where I felt like my relationship with God and Christ had deteriorated simply because I was, being overwhelmed by the environment and the circumstances and the virus and all these things that are happening. And just outside of COVID, I mean, there's just been so many things happening in 2020. And I went through a period where there was a little bit of a silent relationship between God and I, and some kind of way was able to pull through that and, reestablish that relationship and that connection. And so some of you out in my audience, you may need to work on that. And I would encourage you to try to keep God and Christ at the center of whatever you're doing. Nathan, you've got so much you're involved in. I know you got a bunch of Facebook pages, all this kind of stuff. Where can my audience find you, man? Where can they connect with some of these great projects that you're working on?
Yeah, the best site is just my homepage, nathantabor.com. That's NATHANTAB as in boy, OR.com. Or, if they're on Facebook, then go to my Facebook profile right there, and it'll have a link to the website.
And if you're someone that's in business, if you're a leader in your company, or you don't have to be a leader in your company, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you need to talk to someone and just figure out some strategies to get yourself back together and not so burnt out, I would encourage you to also go find some of the speeches and the workshops that Nathan has going on, the virtual workshops and the coaching opportunities. Just follow up with him if you feel like you're in that category and you may be able to benefit from some of his knowledge and experience. And again, support ChristmasToyDrive.com. I really appreciate you all joining me for another great episode. Actually, this upcoming Friday, I want you to think about one of my next upcoming shows. I've got Lauren Desai who is going to join us. Lauren Desai owns Aperture Theater here in downtown Winston-Salem, and we're going to highlight all the Christmas movies that you have to watch this season. So that's going to happen on Friday. And we're going to do this really interesting thing where we make some suggestions about local restaurants that you can actually go out and get a meal that's going to pair well with the Christmas movie. So you don't want to miss that. But tomorrow, I'll have Dr. Ohl, who's an infectious disease expert at Wake Forest. He will be joining us to talk about COVID and what's going on with the spread and the vaccinations that are coming. So you want to join us tomorrow at 3:00. We'll be back for that. And then, as always, if you want to check out this show, you go subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll be available there, as well as on our Facebook pages. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all the various platforms. And last but not least, make sure you support Angela Harriet. She is the one that made this episode and this show possible. Angela Harriet at Keller Williams. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, reach out to my friend Angela and tell her Algenon sent you. Until next time. Y'all stay locked in.